up, YouTube? It's me, Alex, and we are here for Fancast Friday. So this is going to be my last video fancasting the MCU's X-Men. I'm actually going to be talking about 5 different characters in this video because unlike the other ones where I've gone like in this intense background thing, I'm not going to do that for this. I have 2 characters, one who is from a show that's not really from the comics, but I would like to see this character in live action. One who is pretty well known, and I may go into a little bit of backstory about them, but not that much because I don't know a ton about them. And then the other 3 we have seen a lot, so I'm definitely not going to go into their backstory, and I'm just going to keep it to this one video. I didn't want to go past this last video for this because we've seen those other 3 characters so much in the movies that I don't need to do full videos on them like I did for all the other characters. So if you are new here, I have done 5 of the videos where I talked about other X-Men characters, their history, and the movies and things like that, and then I of course fan casted them. So in part 1, I did Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, and Jean Grey, aka whatever you want to call her. Part 2 was Hank McCoy, aka Beast, and Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. In part 3, I did Warren Worthington, aka Angel, and Aurora Monroe, aka Storm. Part 4 was Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler, my favorite, him and Storm, and Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat, Sprite, whatever you want to call her. And then part 5 was Anna Marie, aka Rogue, and Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit. So this last video will be part 6. Nice. Well, you know, 7 is my favorite number, so I'm not. Part 6 will be the last video for me fan casting the MCU X-Men. I definitely don't want to do more than that. So, of course, before we get started, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell to get notifications for when I post more fan casts, and be sure to check out other videos on my channel. So, of course, if you are new to my videos, I have stated in every video that I would like to see the X-Men brought into the MCU the same way I like to see the Fantastic Four brought into it, and that would be them introducing them from the multiverse. I just feel like that is kind of unfair and it's kind of whack to have all the mutants that we know to exist in our current timeline or in our current world, and they have not been seen. I mean, we know legally why they haven't been seen in the past, but in terms of story, I just feel like it would be better, a lot easier, a lot more fun to explore the multiverse and having them be in from another universe. I do think that it's okay that if they have doppelgangers who may not have fully mutated, like let's say they have a mutant gene, but they never mutated or whatever, or I don't know, but I just think that the MCU X-Men should be from another universe. I don't think they should try to make them be from the same world that we have seen. Now that we have all these movies and all these shows and everything that's exploring the multiverse, let's use what we are exploring right now and bring in Fantastic Four, who I fan cast, check out on my channel, and of course the X-Men. I think that would allow for a lot of them to kind of be established if they don't want to go through origin stories, though I do think it does kind of suck for certain characters if they don't get an origin story, because while I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I do think that it kind of sucks that he didn't get an origin story. We'll talk about that when we talk about Spider-Man, when I watch all the movies and stuff like that, but I don't know. So if they don't want to do origin stories, then definitely be from another universe where some of them are established. Either way, have them be from another universe. I think that works the best, easiest, and I think will be the most seamless thing and allows them to be creative. Without further ado, we're going to get right into this fan cast. So my first character I'm going to be talking about is going to be Evan Daniels, aka Spyke. I'm talking about him first because he was only introduced in X-Men Evolution. I didn't know that for a long time, that he was just a character for the show. I was reading that they wanted to diversify the cast more, so they introduced his character. So he is the nephew of Storm in the show. He's American. I don't know which parent of his is Aurora's sibling. I don't remember, and I can't really see. I mean, it says to an unnamed father and Vivian Daniels. I don't remember how that worked. They just had to throw him in there, and I was reading that they didn't want to de-age Bishop because they didn't think that he would fit in the cast of characters they created in the world they created, so they just created a whole new character, and that is Evan Daniels. So in his personality, Evan is a little hot-headed, he's stubborn, and he doesn't really like authority, which kind of makes him like a rebel of the team that we created. But he is a nice guy. He's very funny. I do remember him being very funny, but he has a very kind of like blunt sense of humor. I think when he kind of discovered his powers, he really enjoyed them. He loves skateboarding, so a lot of times when they were fighting, he would sometimes use his skateboard to assist with the fighting. I do remember that. And I do remember that Evan was very hardworking. He didn't want any special treatment from anyone, especially from his aunt, which she didn't give to him. And he very much loved being an X-Men. Like, he had a really good time being part of the team. Him and Kurt were really close. Kurt, Rogue, and Kitty, they definitely were like a unit, which I really enjoyed them, because I feel like that I was probably a little younger than them in the show, but I feel like that they would have been the ones that I would have hung around if I was in the show, because you know when you're a kid, you imagine yourself those characters. So their unit was great. And his abilities is that he has bone spikes, and basically it is a self-replicating exoskeleton, though it appears to be an endoskeleton instead, as the bones emerge from within his body. So, a rapid bone growth. He can extend, retract, and fire incredibly dense bone spikes of any size from nearly any point on his body. From small, pencil-sized spikes to long spikes he can use in combat like fighting sticks, usually from his arms and torso. His body instantaneously seals the wounds caused by projecting his bone spike with no visible scarring. How convenient. Possibly indicating some sort of healing factor limited to his just healing his bone projections and nothing else. His rapid bone growth gives him a strong craving for milk and calcium-rich substances to aid in his accelerated growth, since using his powers decreases his calcium level, which then needs to be replenished. I mean, that's cool, and I feel like we've seen a character like this before, I believe in X-Men The Last Stand, and I was like, oh hey, that guy is kind of like Spyke from the show, and I didn't know if that's who he was based off of. At the time I didn't know, but they're not the same person. It's just, I guess, similar power set. I don't think that guy was really I don't think he was really anybody important, and if he was, you can tell me in the comments, because I don't know. I do remember this particular look where he had this whole like body armor thing going on, but I didn't realize what it was from. And it's like I said, it's been a long time since I've watched X-Men Evolution. But it says that in later episodes, he ingested the sports drink Power 8, which causes harm to those with mutant powers. His powers evolved even more. He gained the ability to heat up the ends of the spikes he produces, increasing their damage potential and allowing them to pierce and cut through steel. He also has protective plates and spurs that form up around his upper body, granting him an almost indestructible exoskeleton, which gives him superhuman endurance and enhanced strength. However, he is unable to retract this skeleton to the rapid growth from the Power 8 drink. So because of his appearance and him not being able to retract it, he ends up leaving the X-Men and going off to live with the Morlocks, which I had no idea. Like, it's been so long. I was like, what? So that actually might be kind of cool. So if they actually introduce Gambit and they do the whole thing with Gambit and the Morlocks, that they could have Spyke be there. And that would be a good way to introduce Evan. And he doesn't have to necessarily be related to Storm at all, but that would be a good way to introduce him, is if they do that. So not much to say about him. I didn't really want to go too much into him because he doesn't have like this huge backstory like how all the other characters do. He's really just from the show. And so like I've done all my videos for some of these characters, I have a teenage version, a young adult version which is at their 20s, and then an older version which is like 30 plus, and I've given options for each age group if I have it. So for Evan, I don't really have all three. I kind of just have two, and one of them goes off for young adult and older. But for my teenage option, I see people often fan cast this actor as a live action Miles Morales, and while I do think he is great, I don't think he's right for that role. I actually would not oppose to him being Static in a Static Shock live action, but I would do a fan cast on that because I have some, I think, better choices than this actor. But I chose Caleb McLaughlin, who is best known from Stranger Things. He plays Lucas, and Caleb just has this like swag to him. I feel like Caleb maintained Evan's coolness and his stubbornness and his sense of humor that may be a little blunt, but once you're kind of used to him and used to the humor, it's cool. And I feel like that depending on what the ages they do for some of these characters, if they do have Kurt, Kitty, Rogue, and then be younger, and Evan is also there and he's young, I feel like that with the choices that I chose, I feel like that would be a good group full of chemistry and diversity. I think that would be really cool. I think he would look cool in the look. He doesn't have to dye his hair blonde, but I think that it would be kind of cool if he did. It is pretty signature of Evan's look. So if he didn't do it, it's okay, but I think it would be really cool if he did. So Caleb McLaughlin for a teenage Evan Daniels, aka Spyke. For my young adult slash older version of Spyke, it took me a really long time to really think about somebody who could be the young adult or the adult. And I didn't really find anybody that I liked enough. So I chose Stephen James, who I know from various things. He pops up in a lot of stuff. I think he's a very good actor. He's very charming, but he definitely has a kind of melancholy about him. And I feel like that would be a different way to play Evan than what I've seen from the show. And I think that's fine. And I have him for both my young adult and my older, because I think he's kind of maybe my age, maybe like between 27 and 30. So I think he could play either or. I think it'd be fine. But because Evan is not this character that's from the comic, if he's not included in the movies, that's okay. But considering the fact that people are always talking about Caleb as Miles, I just remember being like, nah, he would be a better Spyke. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can include him in my fan cast just as a little nugget for those who know X-Men Evolution and who know the character. So yeah, Caleb McLaughlin as teenage Spyke and Stephen James as young adult slash older Spyke. I have two honorable mentions for Spyke. They're both for teenage versions, so I don't have any like young adult or older. If you have any ideas for Evan, please put them in the comment section below. I have Niles Fitch, who I haven't seen him in anything, but I like his look and I've seen some interviews with him and I like his energy. And then Khalil Harris, who I know is in that When They See Us miniseries, which I am not going to watch anytime soon. I'm not interested in being devastated, but he got a lot of praise in that, and I think he's in Goosebumps too, and he just seems to be in a couple of things, and I like his energy from the interviews I saw of him as well. I think he did a good job as Evan too. So Yeah. So next up we have Jubilation Lee, aka Jubilee. So I don't know a lot about this character either. I know that people make fun of her all the time, and I know that she is a lot of memes. I know that she was a psychic of Wolverine at some point. I know she got turned into a vampire. I know that she's considered annoying, and I know that some people consider her powers to be lame. But I wanted to talk about her because of her inclusion in X-Men Apocalypse, and I feel like there was a missed opportunity there. So I'm gonna give a quick rundown of her backstory. So she is the daughter of two prosperous Hong Kong immigrants, and she was born and raised in Beverly Hills, California, and she lived a great life. She attended a Beverly Hills school where she discovered her great talent for gymnastics. So she first discovered her mutant power to generate blinding and explosive energy firework while running away from mall security. The stress from running away caused Jubilee to emit a large light energy blast while in a back alley. This completely disoriented the men, and she was able to get away. So one night, her parents died in a mysterious car accident, and her life was changed drastically. She basically was sent to an orphanage, but then she ran away. She runs away a lot, and she hid in a mall, and basically she was causing trouble while she was there. So the mall security ended up hiring a group of mutant hunters called the M Squad, and they were sent to capture her. So she was able to kind of hold her own against them, but she was eventually caught. But she was then rescued by the X-Men, Dazzler, Psylocke, Rogue, and Storm, who happened to be at the shopping mall. She was very curious about them, and she followed them, I guess, through a portal. So I guess they saved her from the group, but maybe they didn't know that she was there. I don't know. But she ended up following them into a portal. So basically, she managed to get through the portal to their temporary Australian base, but no one, I guess, knew that she was there. She managed to hide around for a long period of time. Like, she was taking people's clothes, taking food. She very much liked Dazzler's clothes, and she just kind of made a little home for herself there until they eventually were ambushed and forced out of that base. The base was taken over by a group of Reavers, who are X-Men's enemy, and she ended up finding Wolverine hung up on a cross and near death. So she was, of course, oh my god, this is terrible. So she ends up helping him and kind of nursing him back to health, feeding him. And it turns out there's this whole thing with the Mandarin, and then there's a lady Mandarin who was really Psylocke locked in an Asian body. I don't really know. So Psylocke managed to like have a mental link with Wolverine, trying to attack him, but the memories of their time as X-Men happened to, I guess, flood her mind and helped her break free. I don't know. And so they managed to escape, and Jubilee was able to hold her own against the Mandarin and his people, the Hand, and she blew up a section of his castle with her powers. So Wolverine, Psylocke, and Jubilee managed to escape. So after a while, Wolverine, Psylocke, and Jubilee came across the island Genosha, where a bunch of mutants were being attacked. So Boom Boom, who I remember from X-Men Evolution, and Richter, who is in Logan, they had lost their powers, and so they were there. So Jubilee was left to take care of them, while Wolverine and Psylocke went to go and infiltrate Cameron Hodges, his citadel, which I mentioned him in the video about Warren, because they were friends in boarding school. Eventually, they, I guess, managed, I don't know if they got their powers back or not, they managed to make a stand against Cameron alongside Wolverine and Psylocke. So when they returned to the United States, Jubilee joined Storm, Wolverine, Psylocke, Forge, Banshee, and Gambit as a member of the X-Men. Even though she accompanied them on many of the missions, they were kind of worried about having her really there because she was very young, but she was very much like, I'm a go-getter. She wanted to be a part of the team, and so I guess she kind of attached herself to Wolverine and was very much like his sidekick. But there's a whole bunch of stuff about Jubilee, so if you want to know more, please read it. But so her biggest thing for her powers is that she has lumikinetic explosive light blasting. Jubilee possesses the mutant ability to generate what she calls fireworks, also known as energy plasmoids, and these are essentially globules of energy that vary in power and intensity. The explosions can result in anything from a multitude of colorful sparkles capable of temporarily blinding a person to a fairly powerful detonation capable of smashing tree trunks or metal objects. She can also absorb the generated fireworks back into her own body without harm. Her mind also possesses a natural defense against telepathic detection or attack. These psionic shields render her mind slippery and invisible to telepathic beings unless they know precisely where to mentally scan for. So she's very skilled in gymnastics, and she's a very good hand-to-hand combatant, and she received training from Wolverine, so duh. And I do believe that she becomes kind of like figurehead in Generation X, which is cool. So that's Jubilee. Like I said, really quickly, quick rundown. I remember her very briefly in X-Men Evolution. She was kind of like in later seasons, kind of when our main group was, I guess, matriculating out. I don't think I realized this girl was her. But sure, I remember her having a crush on Bobby, who was very much kind of being led to be the leader of this new group. I don't really remember anything about her. I remember her being like fun and confident in the show, and I remember her and Bobby working really well together, and she looked up to Storm and Jean. But I don't really remember much else about her. As for the movies, Jubilee hasn't really been that big of a character. She's definitely been in all three. Definitely see her because of either her hair or her yellow jacket, which is an iconic look for her. I was reading that unlike the others who had like uniforms, she would always find some way to incorporate like her her signature colors or her jacket or her goggles or whatever into her look, because she was very fashionable. So in the movies, we see her a few times and she is wearing like a yellow jacket, or her hair is in an interesting way, or she has some type of yellow on somewhere. The time that we actually get to see her do something kind of is X-Men Apocalypse, where she is played by Lana Condor, and I really liked her look in that. That kind of made me interested in her because of X-Men Apocalypse, but I definitely think that she was very underutilized in that movie. I think she could have potentially gone with Scott, Jean, and Kurt, but she would have probably been a good addition to make distractions with her fireworks. I don't know, but I just feel like to have her there, to have her be so prominently there, and to not be there kind of sucks, and it sucks for Lana Condor. So this segues into my fan casting for her. As everybody else, I have 3 choices for Jubilee, and I think that she would be a good addition just because of her relationship with Wolverine in the comic, and depending on what kind of ways they introduce them into the story, depending on who's a teenager and who's not, it could work out in a way where a lot of them could be around the same age. I don't think it's that big of a deal if they make a lot of these characters teenagers as opposed to young adults, but if they do go that route, they want to make sure that they all have very distinctive personalities and have involvement as well. So my teenage version of Jubilee, I chose Peyton Elizabeth Lee, who is most probably well known as Andy Mack from the Disney Channel show, and I just really like her look. She's very cute. She has a very bubbly personality and look to me, so I definitely feel like that she would work really well as this character, whether she has short hair, long hair, whatever they want to do, and I think that she would look great in the signature Jubilee look. And I feel like that they could probably tone down the annoyance of her that everybody seems to really call out for this character. So yeah, Peyton Elizabeth Lee for teenage Jubilee. For teenage or young adult Jubilee, I chose Lana Condor. I think that she's one of the people I think who could come back to play the role. She still looks pretty youthful to me, and even if she didn't play teenage version, she could play a young adult version of her. She was just so underused that it sucks, and I think that her look in that movie was so good that I would love to see her come back. And I really liked the friendship between her, Jean, Scott, and Kurt, but again, it was so little of it that we don't know if they would have continued being friends. So yeah, I would love to have Lana Condor come back, especially if they really do bring Cody Smith McPhee back. Oh, reunited. And then lastly, for my older Jubilee, I chose Nikki Suhu, who I particularly know from I know from one of the Bring It On movies, the one with Christina Milian, and I remember her, she's a cheerleader in that, and I believe that she does like yoga. I think she has some type of physical training as well, because I saw some pictures. I was like, dang girl. So with the physicality that Jubilee has, I think for an adult version, I think that she would be a really good choice for Jubilee. And she's kind of really petite, even though she may not be a kid compared to all the adults, she still will probably have this youthful look to her where people could mistake her being a lot younger than she is. And she also has this like innocence. All 3 of them really have this innocence about them where that can be very endearing and still portray that bubbly, caring nature that Jubilee has, and still be a tad annoying. And I think that that would work out just fine for a character who we've seen but we haven't seen. So those are my options for Jubilee. For my honorable mentions, I have Leah Lewis, who would probably be more for a young adult, even though I did have her down for maybe teenage, but mostly young adult. And Melise Zhao as older Jubilee, I know from Vampire Diaries and the Shannara Chronicles, and probably some other stuff, but I definitely seen her do like physical things, so I think that she would be fine. So those are my options for Jubilee. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So this last section of the video will be talking about Charles Xavier, Erik Lensherr, and Raven Darkholme, who we know as Professor X, Magneto, and Mystique. The reason why I'm not going to be doing a separate video for them is because we basically have had ample movies and stuff with them, same way that I'm not doing Wolverine. So I'm not going to be doing like the backstories, anything like that with these characters. I'm just going to talk about them from the movies, and then I'll do my fan casting, because the video will be too long otherwise, and I definitely do not want to do another video just to talk about these 3 characters who we have seen so many times. I feel like that in these next movies that we get, that they should have smaller roles, especially Mystique. I honestly don't think that we should see her like at all for the longest time. I feel like that she should, if anything, have like, she'd be there, but she's always transformed, so we never know who she is, and then for her to be revealed later. So since I'm already on her, my issue with Mystique is that I feel like that they really tried to push her as this like anti-hero, or this hero with the newer X movies where Jennifer Lawrence played her. In the first movie, I didn't mind her as much because she was like young and kind of hopeful and everything like that, and I did like the addition of her and Charles kind of growing up, and I do think that the relationship issue that they have in that movie is very well handled. But I think the problem comes is really in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix for me. I didn't really mind her much in Days of Future Past either. I think a lot of my issue came just from Jennifer Lawrence in general. I feel like that she just started to not care about the role anymore. And I know that she complained a lot about the look of Mystique, so I know they kept changing how they applied the look, which I think also kind of affected maybe Jennifer Lawrence's acting, or maybe it affected how she looked on screen. And I just started to kind of have issues with it, the whole thing in general. In X-Men Evolution, she was always kind of just there. She was the principal, she was Rogue's friend, and she was always manipulating somebody. And Mystique will do what Mystique has to do for Mystique. She does care about Kurt and Rogue to extents, but at the end of the day, Mystique cares about herself, and she'll do things for herself. So it really annoyed me how in the newer movies that they were trying to make her be like this person that people looked up to. In the older movies, when Rebecca Romijn was playing her, she didn't talk, which kind of sucked. And when she did talk, she had this kind of like effect on her voice where it sounded like multiple voices, which was cool. They didn't do that for Jennifer Lawrence, and I don't know if she would eventually grown up to that, but whatever. And she was cool. Like, that Mystique was really cool. Like, she worked with Erik, she did her thing, you never knew if she was there until you saw like a flash of her eyes, or you saw the walk, you know, but you didn't know it was her because she was always transforming, which is what she should be doing anyway. But with Jennifer Lawrence, it was like either she was Jennifer Lawrence or she was Blue. Honestly, we didn't see her use her powers all that much. I think the most we saw her use her powers was in Days of Future Past, because that movie was really about her, and she was really cool in that. But her in X-Men Apocalypse really, really annoyed me. And then in Dark Phoenix, when she said that stupid line to Charles, maybe we should call this group X-Women because the women are doing our saving around here. When she said that, and I saw that in the movies, I looked at my friend and said, who wrote that line? That is a terrible line. And her delivery of it was so bad. Whew. I'm getting worked up. I think, like I said, if they introduce Mystique, she should just always be somebody else until we have to see her. Be somebody else. So that way they don't have to cast anybody as much, and they don't have to worry so much about whatever look that she has. And if they do introduce her when she's Blue, I think she should have her signature look, which is the red, like, hair and the white outfit and the blue skin. The kind of scaly look they have for her, I think is really cool, especially when it comes to the effects of her changing. I think it's a really cool idea. But again, same thing I said about Kurt. We don't want to associate these versions of X-Men with the Fox version of X-Men, so we want to have her look completely different. I think that she should be more off of her comic book self. I think besides the blue paint, I think it's a pretty easy look to do. I mean, she's wearing a white top and skirt, and again, she could change into anything she wants to change into. So I don't see the problem. So for Mystique, Charles, and Erik, I don't have teenage or young adult versions. They're all going to be older, as they should be. And so for Mystique, I casted the one and only Charlize Theron. I feel like that she would be fantastic as Mystique when we actually see her be Mystique. Otherwise, I think it'd be fine to not have an actress. But if we have a movie where Mystique is very heavily involved, like maybe something to do with Kurt and Rogue or something like that, then I feel like that Charlize Theron would be really good. And the kind of detached amusement that she has in the Fast and Furious movies as whatever her character's name is, that would work really well for Mystique. So Charlize Theron as Mystique. And my honorable mentions are Lena Headey, who of course is Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. I think that she'd be interesting as Mystique. Let me know what you think. As for Charles, in the first movies, obviously Patrick Stewart played him, and he's iconic, and I think that he does such a good job. Sometimes I feel like he's too like there's something about Charles in the older movies where he just seems kind of like removed from everybody, even though he's not. That's the kind of impression that I kind of get, but he's still very caring. You know, it's a very difficult thing, but I think Patrick Stewart plays him very well. I really like the scene between him and James McAvoy in Days of Future Past where they meet each other and he's talking to his younger self about his trauma and his depression and his sadness and everything like that, and it's such a great scene. And speaking of James McAvoy, I love James McAvoy. I have loved James McAvoy since Chronicles of Narnia when he was Mr. Tumnus. I have loved him since then. And everything he's in, I'm like, oh my god, James McAvoy. And I think he was such a good choice for Charles. I mean, even though the timelines are very weird of him growing up into Patrick Stewart is very weird, but I think he has been a very good choice for this character. We got to see many versions of him because, like, you know, that serene, kind-hearted teacher that we always see, he very much was not that in the beginning. He was kind of very cocky and very ambitious, but he still was very caring. I mean, he definitely helped everybody kind of hone their powers in, but he was not the man that we know from when he's older and in a wheelchair. And then I very much liked him in Days of Future Past because his character took like a complete 180 where he was like dirty and angry and just, oh, it was so good. He's so good at that. You really felt that his fear of his powers because he can hear everybody, and it's so good. It's so good. X-Men Apocalypse, I mean, movie's not good, but it's fun. And then Dark Phoenix, I don't like that movie, and I don't like what they did with him. It very much felt like this was like the everybody hates Charles train in that movie, and I did not like that at all. So, and of course, if you notice that James McAvoy is like super buff in that movie because he was like, I guess, preparing for Glass. Either he did Dark Phoenix before Glass, or he just got done with Glass. But either way, he was buff, and it was because of Glass. And I remember being like, James, I'm single too, you know. But both actors have been great as Professor X, as Xavier, and I think they are both amazing. And honestly, I would not be opposed to James McAvoy returning as Xavier. He's probably too young for him to be an older man, but I would love for James McAvoy to come to the MCU. I don't know as what, but I would love to see him play another comic book character. So put it in the comments below if you have an idea of who James McAvoy could play. It doesn't have to be an X-Man. It could be anybody. It could be a villain. He's good at that too. So let me know. So I was thinking really hard about my choices for Xavier, and I was really trying to not pick somebody that everybody always picks. Like, people always pick Mark Strong, and I think he would be a good choice, and he's my honorable mention, but I feel like that Ralph Fiennes would be better because you never know what Xavier is thinking. Like, you know, he cares for his team, for his student, and he will do whatever he can for that, especially to foster the relationships between humans and mutants. That's very important to him, and I feel like that Ralph Fiennes will be able to encompass that, as well as the times where you're just a little unsure about what's going on. But I think at the end of the day, we all know that Xavier won't do things, at least he will try not to do things that will harm others. Ralph Fiennes played Voldemort, and it's kind of like him playing him playing Professor X. I don't know. I feel like that regalness that Ralph Fiennes seems to have to me, I thought that he would do a really good job as Professor X. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. And I wanted somebody who could also have like really good, like a good speaking voice, which I think he does. And then I wanted somebody who could go really like toe to toe with my choice for Erik, because I think that's important too. So of course, Ralph Fiennes is my main choice for Professor X. My honorable mentions, as I said before, is Mark Strong and also Giancarlo Esposito. I think that he would also be great. He has a great voice as well, and he also has that same kind of regalness about him. All three of these actors, I believe, have played villains in their lifetimes, and they all can come off very villainous, but I think they also can come off very caring and stern as well, which is important, I think, for Charles. So for Erik, he of course was played by the iconic Sir Ian McKellen. Sir Patrick Stewart. And the two of them in the older movies, fantastic chemistry. They have great scenes of dialogue together. They're talking like they really are old friends who have turned enemies because their ideals are so different. And I think the big thing with Erik is that he'll do whatever is necessary, honestly, because his whole thing is that mutants should not be afraid of who they are, what they can do, F the humans. And I feel like that he may come around in his ideals sometimes about that, but I think at most times he's like, no, mutant and proud. At least very much that for the movies. He's way more prominent in the first one, I think. In the second one, he's there, but he kind of doesn't really have a ton to do. He's like in jail, and then he has like those scenes at the end where he goes and rearranges Cerebro, but it's not a ton. He has, I think, a lot more to do in the first one. And then in the third one, he has a lot to do there too, but it's kind of stupid because like he leaves Mystique. I know she turned human, but he like left her. And then he was trying to like manipulate Jean, and he lost his powers. It's just a lot happening in the third one. So him moving the Golden Gate Bridge, which I think that's the bridge that he moved, is a really cool scene. And then Days of Future Past, again, small role, but him and Charles are friends, and I think he died in that. And then he was played by Michael Fassbender in the newer X movies, where he's of course a young man. And I think Michael Fassbender has been great as Erik. I think that's some of the highest praise those newer movies have is James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender's chemistry and the relationship between Charles and Erik in those movies. And I feel like that because we don't really get to see a lot of the progression of Erik in the older movies, because he's an older man, he's already kind of there. The newer movies really allowed us to see that with Charles too. Erik progressed into who he is when he becomes Ian McKellen, and I think that's pretty great. One of my favorite scenes from the first movie is when he tells Charles to like shoot him because he can stop the bullet, and Charles is like, no, move the dish, and find the place between like serenity and anger or something like that. And that scene is great scene, and I think they both acted that very, very well. And I think that particular scene says a lot about Erik. And then of course he in the movie is the reason why Charles ended up becoming paralyzed, and it was very sad to see them go. Of course Mystique left with him, and then Days of Future Past, he's in jail and they managed to get him out, and he's going to kill Mystique because she causes all these issues, and it's just a whole thing. And then it just kind of felt like the same old, even though Michael Fassbender is great. And then in Apocalypse, he is of course a horseman, and honestly it just felt like, okay, here we go, he's mad again. I'm aware that his family was killed and everything like that, but it's like, oh, he's mad again. So honestly, at this point, he was kind of getting on my nerves. And then in Dark Phoenix, he was off living his best life, and Jean comes and messes everything up, and then he goes and wants to kill her because she killed Mystique, and whatever. And he's cool. He has very cool powers and everything like that. And I think Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen both have been great, truly standouts and iconic in this role. And I would be fine if Michael Fassbender has some way to return as Erik, but again, I want them to be older men. So I want to choose somebody who I feel like would go toe-to-toe with Ralph Fiennes, who has a very intimidating feel about him. I feel like Magneto should be intimidating. I remember in X-Men Evolution that I always felt intimidated when he showed up. I mean, I was a kid, but I always felt intimidated when he showed up. Ian McKellen is great, and he has this kind of like looming nature to him sometimes, but I am not scared of that man. I am not scared of him. And I want somebody who could strike fear if he needed to. And I feel like the actor I chose will do that very well. I think it's a great speaking voice. He has this very commanding presence, but also speaking very softly. I think it's funny now that I'm looking at the cast, that I'm looking at my choice, that him and Ralph Fiennes had worked together before, but they were on the same side, and he was his subordinate. And so I chose Jason Isaacs, who I particularly know as Captain Hook from Peter Pan, iconic movie. He was great as that character. We will try to watch that on the channel. And then of course him as Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter series, which like I say, he played Voldemort's subordinate. And that character is very interesting because he very much is like a poser. He's a poser. I feel like Jason Isaacs would be a really good Erik, a very good Magneto. And I feel like if they find some way to incorporate Magneto and Wanda and Pietro together, be really good in scenes with Elizabeth Olsen. So yes, this video will probably be a little longer than all the other ones because I am doing 5 characters. But like I said, I didn't want to do a very, very long thing for them because Evan, he's only from this show. I did a little bit for Jubilee because we've seen her before, but we haven't seen her before. I think that she'd be very good to incorporate. And then Mystique, seen her many, many times. We can honestly take a break from her. Same way with Logan, who I did not cast. So if you want to cast Wolverine, Logan in the comments, please feel free to do so. But we honestly can take a break from Mystique and Logan. And then Erik and Charles. So I feel like we can take a break from them too, so they've been so prominent and they can just be kind of like background characters, but I do think that they're necessary to be there, which is why I casted who I cast. So to refresh you, for Evan Daniels aka Spyke, for my teenage version I chose Caleb McLaughlin, and for my young adult / older version I chose Stephen James. For Jubilation Lee or Jubilee, I chose Hayden Elizabeth Lee as her teenage version, Lana Condor as teenage or young adult version, and then Nikki Suhu as adult version of Jubilee. For Mystique, for whenever we do see her, because like I said before, we honestly don't have to see her physically. She could just be transforming to other people all the time. I chose Charlize Theron. She would be great. We all know this. So for Charles Xavier, I chose Ralph Fiennes. And then for his best friend who opposes his ideal, Erik Lensherr, I chose Jason Isaacs. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. This has been really fun to do this X-Men fan casting. I know it took a lot longer than I really wanted it to be, but hey, we got it done. I'm super excited to go to my next fan cast, which won't be a series. It's going to be one whole thing. This had to be a series because there's so much to unpack here. I really appreciate you guys sticking it out for all 6 videos. And if you haven't seen the past 5, please check them out. They're on my channel, as well as all my other videos, my fan cast, my trailer reactions, my movie commentaries. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell to get notifications when I post more videos. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. Bye.